From the unknown to the stars, from the couch to the car, from the unheralded and the unheard, to the legends and beyond, it's where we all belong. Yes, this is where it all starts. From every genre, from every plane, this is where the music's played. So tune right in, won't you bring a friend? This is where it all begins. Welcome to the show, let the music flow of every style and creed. And you can bet your socks that ETX rocks, ETX rocks.
Hey guys, Boston Chris here with the number one resource for independent music in Northeast Texas. It's the ETX Rock Show, and guys, this is the season 4 premiere episode number 301, and we have a huge treat for everybody out there. Now, Benton Blount is what everybody would call a struggling singer-songwriter. He's had a long career, got some notice on America's Got Talent, one badass of a guitar player and singer, and we've got him on the phone all the way from, I think, South Carolina, right?
Yeah, Greenville, South Carolina.
And so Benton's made some news recently, and we'll talk about that a little bit, as well as how he got started in music. But I really want to get started in his roots. Now, at age 18, you hadn't even sung or played guitar or anything yet, had you?
No, I was a football player. I didn't really play any instruments. My family was pretty musical, but I never really did any of it. I just kind of played sports, and that's really what I thought I was going to do till one summer started playing at a local church and haven't stopped playing music since.
Yeah, it's crazy, with a voice like yours to be 18 years old and not realize how much of a badass you are. That had to be pretty eye-opening for you, right?
Well, I appreciate that. I still don't consider myself that, but I definitely take the compliment.
Well, you guys might hear the moving of poker chips and some chatter in the background. He's actually had his poker night tonight. We definitely appreciate the time spent with us. But tell us about, I know you were signed to a label out of Nashville that kind of fell through, and first single was on the way, and a song you wrote. What kind of tribulations did that kind of create for you at that part of your career?
It was one of those weird things where it did cause some problems, but nothing that I felt like my career was over for. It was more of, you get into the industry, and especially, like, the thing I love about Texas is they have kind of you have your own industry there, but in Nashville, it's like the industry for everybody, every other state in the country.
Right. And
I was in that system, plugged into it, and the politics of all of it and all the BS that people have to deal with, and I just had been fortunate enough to get plugged into the right system, and we had a single that was getting ready to go to radio, and then that label closed, so that entire system kind of went away, because if you don't have the label support, they won't play it at radio, even if they really like it, even if they already have it queued up to play.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where people say, you almost made it, but I felt like I was even a little past that, like I was like right at the finish line, and somebody jerked the rug right out from under me at the last second. So
yeah, because you had put a lot of work into that single on the road, doing radio tour already, even though it hadn't been added yet. But
yeah, we did. We went to 100 and some different of the major market stations. Went from East Coast to West Coast, and really put a lot of leg work and money and time into it, and just crazy how those things work.
Right, and that's a song that you wrote called Carolina that ended up being a number one hit later on for, I think, Parmalee, right?
Yeah, well, and there's actually a funny story about that song, and a lot of people, and this is where the misconception of that song comes from, is I didn't myself write the song.
Okay.
So what happened with the song is those guys were a rock band, kind of like a Motley Crue, Daughtry band from North Carolina. My manager at the time was working with them as well, and I met them one night, and they're like, "We got this song, Carolina. You should make it a country song." And I listened to it, and it had country lyrics as far as just down home, talking about loving being where you live and that kind of thing. And I said, "Well, I mean, I could do it, but if you guys I mean, you guys sound country as far as the way you talk. If you'd ever consider doing country, I wouldn't want to do it. And they're like, no, man, we'd be sellouts if we did country.
Wow.
So, and I was like, okay, well, I'll do it. And then next thing you know, as soon as my label closed, I think 2 weeks later, they were in Nashville saying they were in a country band, and we wrote the song that Benton Blount had at Radio Carolina. And next thing you know, they're millionaires.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it might shock you, but I got bad information from the internet as usual. Apparently, he did not write the song.
Well, to give you credit, most of the people around here, including my fans, thought that I wrote it because nobody had really heard it before I put it out. So,
yeah,
but, it's kind of like George Strait. I mean, all the songs that he's made number ones, a lot of those he didn't write, but people don't really know the difference. They just know George Strait did the songs.
Right.
A fan thinks that they wrote.
Yeah, we've had several of George's writers on the show, so hopefully we have educated folks about that, including Leslie Thatcher, who wrote Troubadour along with Monty Holmes. And,
oh, nice.
Yeah, she was on last season. Now, speaking of podcasts, I mean, not only have you been a guest on several podcasts, but you also host your own podcast. And, it's not necessarily has to do with much with music either. You're definitely very opinionated.
yeah, and it's one of those weird things where, to be honest, like I've never been like somebody that wanted to throw my opinion in people's faces, but I think I've always been into politics and been into news, and ever since I grew up with my grandparents, like 12 and 13 years old. So I would kind of get educated about the stuff, and then, occasionally people would talk about it. And then recently, in the last couple of years, it seems like people with a certain type of opinion are being told you can't voice that opinion. And I'm kind of the guy that's like, oh, you say I can't say it, well, screw you, here I go. So I just started, just saying what I think more than anything, just to promote that people should be able to give their own opinion. And we kind of, that podcast kind of covers everything, but a lot of times it drifts towards politics because people know that I'll ruffle some feathers with it.
Well, I personally love your podcast, man, just because you're so damn open about everything you discuss, and your passion just kind of, bleeds through the airwaves, if so to speak, man. I love how passionate you are about not just politics and music, but damn near anything you talk about, even family, and it's definitely a bird's eye view into who Benton Blount is. Do you enjoy doing the whole podcasting thing?
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's one of those things where playing music as long as I have, like it feels like you only give a piece of yourself to people. So I've met fans that have been to, 50 to 100 shows of mine over the years. So at some point it's like you want them to know more about you, but not necessarily on that buddy, hey, let's go get lunch and hang out and, take our kids to the mall or whatever. But, doing a podcast or something gives them a way to know more about who you are rather than just the music that you put out.
Absolutely, and that's where the genesis of our show came through. Is I went to a lot of local music shows and singer-songwriter events and stuff like that, and I sitting around one night listening to the music, and I was like, man, I'd love to know more about how she wrote that song. And it's just hard to get that from a stage. You hear the song, they don't get much talking time, and so I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if I could sit down with the songwriter and just ask him questions? And so that's where we kind of came up with this concept for this show.
That's excellent.
Yeah, so here we are almost 3 years later, 301 episodes. Just been super blessed. Last episode we did was with Vince Gill. I mean, who would have ever thought, So
that's great. That's awesome.
So, 2015 rolls around and somehow you find yourself on America's Got Talent with circus performers and magicians and contortionists and God knows what else. And here you are just with your guitar and your smile. How did this all come about?
It was another one of those things that I wasn't looking for. I've been playing music for a long time and just kind of had dealt with the fact that I would kind of, I would do music as long as I could, as long as it was supporting my family and making sense as full time as I could. And I get this call one day, and this was a producer, and they said, hey, we wanted to see if you'd like to audition for America's Got Talent. And I said, no thanks.
Yeah.
And they just kind of sat there for a little while, and they said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I've seen how it works. I said, you have a cattle call line in that arena. You stand in a line of 10,000 people, and then they pick 10 of those people. And I said, honestly, I'd be better off going up and buying a scratch-off ticket at the store, and I'd probably make more money.
Right.
Just really honest with them, because that's the only way I know how to be. And they said, "Oh no, it's not that. We do this a little different. We just don't tell people about it. This is you audition on Skype, and we listen from L.A." And I was like, "So at my house?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, well, sure." So I auditioned for the show. Literally didn't think I was going to make it. I just got home from the gym, sweaty, nasty. Picked up my guitar, called them up on Skype in Los Angeles, and as I'm playing the first song, out of the corner of my eye, I can see my son, who's 2 at the time, behind me, and he's butt naked with his diaper off, slinging it across the room. And I'm thinking in my head, okay, I'm definitely not making the show now. So I finished the song, and I'm like, okay, go ahead and let me down easy. And they're like, we'll get back to you. I said, sure you will. So 30 minutes later, they call back and said, we think you're perfect for the show. We'll see you in New Jersey for the official audition. I was like,
wow.
Well, thanks, son.
Yeah, and you took a huge risk in doing an original song for that audition, too.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I've played cover songs. I've done that circuit where you play a bar and they want it to be 80% covers and 20% original, or even less original. And I just decided, I wasn't planning on doing this show. I don't think that I'll make the show, so I'm at least going to show them what I have that's mine, and, let them make the decision on that rather than how good I can sing a cover song.
Right. And, a lot of people with these talent shows and national talent shows, there's a misnomer out there amongst the audience that it's almost like a get-rich-quick scheme, but it's really not. It's a lot of hard work, and most of the people you see on these TV shows have already put in, 10, 15 years on the circuit, and Benton's no different. Do you have any regrets on doing the show?
No, I don't really have any regrets. I'd say the only part about the show that I didn't like is just the song choices weren't really much that I could pick my own. It was more of them kind of coercing us into doing what they want us to do.
Right.
So I don't feel like I got to really show people what I actually do as much. But as far as, the time that it took and the stress of being on the show and traveling back and forth, I don't really have any. I think it only helped. It didn't hurt. Yeah.
And I've heard that before. We've had several people on the show that have been either on AGT or American Idol or The Voice, and it's definitely very producer-picked and not artist-picked.
Yeah, and they do it in a way where it's you picking it, but it's not you picking it. If that makes any sense. Like,
yeah, they put the idea into your head. Like, yeah.
They'll kind of like they'll say pick 10, and then okay, well, out of those 10, what are the best 5? And then you give them 5, and they're like, well, what about this one? Like, pick the one they actually wants you to do, but you kind of had a hand in leading it down, even though you didn't.
Yeah. So you mentioned your son, and I talked about passion earlier, and you are obviously very outspoken about your being a dad and a husband and all that. How hard is it for you to balance all that with everything else you've got going on?
It's definitely not the easiest thing in the world, but it's not something that's been very hard to do. I've kind of done it and just adapted as we've grown as a family, because we have 3 kids now. So the first one is pretty easy. Second one, it got a little harder, and then now that we have 3, it's a lot of scheduling and doing things a certain way to make sure I can get stuff done. So it's definitely obstacles that I have to jump over. I didn't have to before, but it hasn't been something where I've said, man, I really need to reanalyze whether I can do this or not.
Right. And guys, we're hoping that Benton will send us a couple of acoustic performances to share in the episode here as well, so you can kind of see what we're talking about as far as his music and everything. Now, one thing I think really makes you stand out amongst the country crowd is that voice of yours. It's very, very loud, very powerful. And I mean, every performance I've ever seen of you let it all hang out, man. I mean, you don't hold anything back. Do you feel like that's kind of set you apart?
Yeah, I think in a way. I know when I lived in Nashville, I got a lot of pitches from the big songwriters because there were songs that they had that none of the other country guys in Nashville could do, because they were, closer to rock and roll, but they were still country, but they had they were in a key that the guy really had to dig in, like some of the stuff Travis Tritt did back in the day, which is a big influence of mine.
Yeah,
and and I was the only one at the time that could sing them, because the closest to me would have been my neighbor at the time was Jason Aldean, and he can hit notes, but he can't really, dig into it. And I think, funny story about it is part of it's not really, it's something I kind of had to do, because I grew up in church, and I was basically a bass as far as what my vocal range would be, but I'm singing tenor music, so I'm really having to scream just to get the notes out. So I think the grit and the power comes from just, I don't really have there's not a knob. It's all the way to 11 already, so I just have to go for it.
Yeah. And you mentioned the rock elements to your music. It's definitely quite the mix between rock and roll and country. So I would love to, you mentioned Travis Tritt. Who were some of your other influences growing up musically?
Man, I listen to everything because I'm biracial. Grew up, my dad's black. He played in some Motown bands and stuff growing up. So I had Motown influences. I had blues influences. As far as like the people that I listen to everything from, of course, the Travis Tritts. I listen to more Southern rock, so probably like Leonard Skinner, all the way to Travis Tritt, than I did the actual, outlaw country guys. I wasn't that big into them till later in life. But I listened to Metallica, I listened to Pantera, I listened to Two Live Crew. I mean, I literally listened to every genre of music you could think of because I love music. It was just at the time I thought it was just from a listening perspective.
So with that broad range of influences, how do you feel that affects your songwriting when you're sitting down with pen to paper?
Good and bad. It's one of those things, like I have a studio at my house now where I record, some songs that I put out, but mostly demos. And I have a collection of a couple hundred songs that completely span the genre from R&B type sounding to just, outlaw country type stuff and everything in between. So, it's a blessing because I really enjoy making music in general, regardless of the genre. It's hard for me to get zoned in on the stuff that people come to my shows to see sometimes because I'm, once I get an idea, I don't want to lose it. So I record it. Next thing I have a song that I'm not going to perform ever, but hopefully somebody else will.
Yeah, I can imagine at your live shows, people are going to get a broad range of styles and all of that stuff. It probably makes people feel like they're at several different concerts.
yeah, and I try to do it in a way where it still kind of comes together. I always look at it like a roller coaster ride. Like you want to take people through the ups and downs. So if it's all up tempo and wide open the whole time, people can kind of get tired of that after an hour. But if you give them enough, and then you bring it down a little bit and give them a middle of the road song and then a ballad, and then you jump back up again, it kind of makes people engage more too.
There's a lot of artists nowadays that really don't think about that that connection to an audience or the way the set list can kind of make you more connectable to an audience. They just go out and perform, and there's no thought behind it. And,
absolutely. And I actually take what you said when you were describing how your show got started. That's something that I try to do, that I learned from watching Travis Tritt and then watching another influencer who lives here in Greenville, Edwin McCain. He's like an Americana singer-songwriter guy.
Yeah, I know Edwin, yeah.
Yeah, and they tell stories. Like I went to watch Edwin over 100 times when I was growing up, and that's something I remember is, he would play a song, but you knew what it meant because he would tell you a story about why he wrote it.
Yeah. And, talk about a guy with a voice. There's a guy with a voice. Holy cow.
Oh, man. Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's where I get a lot of my influence from, because when I first started learning to play, I couldn't read music. So I was literally having to play by ear and then sing by ear. So I was singing songs from him, and he, of course, is really powerful. So I was having to try to come close to matching that because I couldn't switch it to another key. I just had to sing it like he was doing it.
Right. And now you've learned all that, and it's probably kind of sharpened you up as not only a performer, but in your songwriting as well, I imagine.
Yeah, it definitely, listening to guys like that, it's caused me to, force myself to mature as a songwriter and never get stuck in a rut of writing like cookie cutter, the standard songs that you hear on the radio every day, just because, 9 out of 10 songs of those you won't remember in 10 years. So I'd rather my music mean more than that at some point in time, hopefully.
Yeah. And speaking of new music, I believe you're working on a new album now, aren't you?
I am. And, again, kind of stepping out of the Nashville zone on purpose. I went to L.A. to record this record. We recorded it at Dave Grohl's studio, Studio 606, and I mean this record is kind of what you would think based on what I've told you about me as a artist, as far as the influences I have, because the people that play on the record, even we have Phil X that plays with Bon Jovi now, Carmine Rojas, who was the bass player for David Bowie forever, Scott Page, who was a saxophone player for Pink Floyd, Kenny Arnoff, who plays with everybody.
Yeah.
Just this eclectic group of people who scan the gamut of genres, making this one record. So it kind of fits the way that I've tried to describe myself over the last 15 to 20 years as far as where I see myself as an artist. So I'm pretty excited about getting it out there.
So what do you think people can expect from the record? Now, I've listened to your other albums, and I imagine the evolution process has probably taken you even further now. So tell folks what they can expect once this releases.
Well, this one, if you listen to my other records, you'll hear there's little shades of the Southern rock and the heavier guitars, and sometimes even a double kick pedal with the drums, and that's just me kind of showing people sides of who I am. And this one, weirdly enough, kind of takes a step back from that, so it's not as much about the heavier guitars as much as there's the groove and the atmosphere of the song and then the vocals. So it's definitely not like a more aggressive record, but it's definitely a more mature record, but not to the point where people won't get it.
Right. When can we expect it to be out?
Well, if it was up to the powers that be and what they told me, it would have been out about a week ago. But because we have everything queued up, especially with all the stuff that happened recently, they wanted to go ahead and get it out while people were paying attention to what I was doing as much as they are. And it looks like in the next week or two, they'll have the digital album out, and then we'll do the physical copy right around February or March.
Very, very cool. And yeah, we've been talking for about 20 minutes now with Benton Blount. It's episode 301 of the ETX Rock Show. Now, Benton just mentioned everything going on, and I'm pretty happy we've got through 20 minutes of talking about his music and who he is as a man and a father and everything. But you did make some news recently. You're a very outspoken supporter of President Trump and everything right-wing, I guess, is the best way to put it. I guess just in your own words, tell folks what happened, man.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am a Trump supporter. I don't know if I go as far to say I'm one of the ones who at the very beginning was like gung-ho about him, but I think for me it's just been, he was the one that I felt like was going to do the best job for the country. And I'm pretty vocal about it if people ask me or if I'm posting something online. And one thing I never do, and I always make sure I tell people before we talk about this part of the story, is I never take my politics on stage. And unless I'm talking about just America as a whole and freedom and our military, I never inject it into my songs either.
Right.
So I've always made that distinction. So if you come to a show, it doesn't matter what your political leaning is, you won't have to worry about hearing something you don't want to hear.
Right.
But I got to go on tour with Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top. I played some shows with him before up in New York and over in L.A. And we went out and we did 4 shows, and it was right around the time of the midterm. So we had 2 weeks off. Went to that morning, I got up, take my kid to school, went to vote, and of course I put on my Make America Great Again hat because to me it's more like, it's not even like the most comfortable hat in the world to wear, but it's like a hat that some people are going to get offended by. And to me, it's more not about trying to offend them, but it's like at some point in time, people will get, why does this offend you so bad? Like there's so many other things in life that should bother you other than a red hat with white writing on it.
Yep.
And so I wore it, and I went to get Chick-fil-A and brought it home. And I'm standing in the kitchen, and my wife literally looks at me, and I look down, and I'm wearing all red, so I look like a Republican billboard. And I'm wearing the I voted sticker, my hat, and my Chick-fil-A sandwich, which for whatever reason, because this company's a Christian company and they support Christian organizations, people say they're homophobic, which is completely not the case.
It's off base. It's just completely off base, dude.
Yeah. So, but that's the impression. So, of course, it offends people. So I'm literally a walking billboard for offense to somebody or multiple people.
Yep.
And the irony of it made me take this picture.
and I posted it online. I said, I'm sure this picture will offend multiple people in multiple ways. That's literally all that the picture said.
Yep.
And within an hour, Facebook removed the picture and banned me from Facebook for 24 hours for posting that picture. So as ironic as it was still true, obviously, if whatever moderator decided to take that down. And then fast forward to the next day, we were going to pick up our tour with Billy in Atlanta. We get to the gig. Nobody calls me to tell me anything. Get all the way to the show and find out not from Billy or anybody in the camp, but find out from my producer in LA that his manager kicks me off the tour because of the picture that Facebook took down.
Wow.
Yeah. So fun times.
Well, I think next time what you should do is just to make sure you cover all bases is wear like a something Yankees and something Red Sox as well at the same time. That way you cover sports as well. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know. I didn't realize until this time that people in the music world took stuff serious, but I know how people are in sports, so I didn't want to get shot or stabbed or anything else.
Just leave whatever you do. Just leave the Cowboys out of it, man. You know what I'm saying? Oh man,
I've learned from traveling all over the country that you leave the Cowboys and the Redskins for whatever reason, and the Patriots completely out of conversation if you talk bad about it, because somebody's gonna get really pissed off.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that goes for just about any football team except for like the Jaguars, which I don't think most people even know exist.
Right.
Man, I've been following you on social media for a while. I think you are an amazing American, dude.
I appreciate that.
Just somebody who is maybe, you're a Republican, you lean right, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's all about America. And, I've never gotten political on my show, and I'm fixing to. I think President Trump is doing a fantastic job. I think there is fear in America around the globe now, again, finally. And I think the reason for that is Trump makes his own rules. He doesn't follow the, 2-century rules that we've had in place that haven't really worked for a long time. This guy is from outside the swamp, so to speak, and getting shit done, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and that's, to be honest, and I am considered conservative, but I'm by no means like the epitome of a Republican. Like if somebody's a Democrat, but they, take a stance where America comes first and support our soldiers, I'll be voting Democrat. Like I'm literally that guy who wants to vote for the people that are going to protect the republic. And
I'm the same way. I always look for who I think is the best American who is running.
Yeah, and I definitely don't fit the mold when it comes to the conservative values of not going to the bar and having way too many drinks, because I would be disqualified as of 20 years ago. But
right,
I just think that he, to me, is like what we needed to, on both sides, to stir things up. And you can tell because both sides of the political spectrum, they're cowering. Like they don't know what to do because this person's not playing by that, the politics rule of, well, you got to do it this way because we've always done it this way. He's like, no, it's not in the rule book, so I'm changing. We're doing it this way.
Yep. And I mean, let's be honest anyway, in the 21st century, it's all about spin anyhow. And, if you're not one that's spinning it, then, you're shooting straight. People don't like straight shooters anymore, I don't think.
Well, and I'm hoping that's what, that's, again, back to the podcast and even my music and what I sing about is I'm hoping that it comes back around. Like, to me, John Wayne, back in the day, was the epitome of a straight shooter. Like, even in his movies, in real life, like he just told it like it was. You might not like it, but you still respected it that he told it like it was.
Clint Eastwood's another one.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And I would be all for that. Like somebody on a radio station the other day said, well, how would you feel if somebody came in your band, they walked on stage and they had a Hillary Clinton shirt on? I said, well, number one, if a dude's wearing a Hillary Clinton shirt, I don't care if they like them or not. That's weird, but I wouldn't care. Their political thing. I have guys in my band who are definitely more liberal leaning, but it's never once been an issue for me. Because
it's a free country, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
plus if I had to rely on just conservative artists, I'd be screwed because there's not that many of them.
Exactly. Yeah, guys, we're talking with Benton. Benton, what's the name of the new record going to be?
You know what? I hate even saying this because I feel like I did it to myself, but every album I put out so far has been a self-titled album of a different color.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't even know if this one's going to have a title, but if it is, it's probably going to be Wrong Side, which is one of the cuts on the record, which kind of, describes me, and it's just talking about, being from the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah. I was hoping you'd go with something like Making Country Music Great Again or something like that,
I did think about that, and that's still not off the, actually, I'll probably think of a song to go along with that during my poker game tonight, and have to write it now, so I'll have to give you credit.
I get a fifth, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Benton, if I don't know how people could not have heard of you yet, but if they haven't, where can folks follow along with everything you got going on, man?
The best way to go about it is to go to my website, Blount.com, and it's Blount, like Blount, however the easiest way to say it. And then as far as my social media goes, it's any social media that most people use. I have an account there, and it's just whatever that social media site is /Benton Blount.
Make sure you're supporting everything Benton does. Check out a show if he's coming to your area. I know he plays all over the country. Shoot, man, you do 100, 150 shows a year, right?
Yeah, I do, and we come down to Texas quite a bit. We have in the past, so hopefully we'll get down that way too.
Yeah, man, I'd love to meet you in person, man, if you're ever in East Texas.
That sounds good to me.
Very, very cool. So you guys check him out. It's bentonblunt.com. We'll put a link to that in the description down below. Hit that and follow him on social media. I know he's pretty much everywhere: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You got a Snapchat?
I do have a Snapchat.
Oh, good Lord.
I had to do it. It's like I wouldn't do half of the social media if I didn't feel like I had to. But right now it's like, okay, I'll just do another thing that'll take another second away from my life.
Yeah. Snapchat, I've never really quite understood it yet. I guess maybe I'm too old. I don't know.
I don't think you're supposed to understand it, to be honest, because I don't either.
Cool. I feel better now. Hey, guys, if you're tuned into us for the first time, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to listen in with us. You can follow along with everything we have on all social media. We're at ETX Rocks. We have a really, really cool website for you guys, too, called etxrocks.show. With over 11,000 hours of content on there from the legends and beyond. What is it we say? From the unheralded and unheard to the legends and beyond. We've had Whispering Bill Anderson, Vince Gill, Ronnie Millsap, all the way down to folks that you've never heard of that you'll love, I promise you. So check that out, etxrocks.show. This is episode number 301 featuring Benton Blount. Now, guys, as we've said on this show for 3 years, we want to thank you guys out there for always supporting live music of all genres and all styles. And don't ever forget,
ETX rocks.
That's right.
From the unknown to the stars, from the couch to the car, from the unheralded and the unheard, to the legends and beyond, it's where we all belong. Yes, this is where it all starts. From every genre, from every plane, this is where the music's played. So tune right in, won't you bring a friend? This is where it all begins. Welcome to the show.